now we have our product and we have our solvent in here, and we need to try to get this out of here because we want to dry it and clean it. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to scrape this down a little bit. So I got it way up on the sides there. Okay. And then what I have here is I have a Hirschfeld. That's very small sidearm flask, and there is a small filter here. We usually want to use this type of a filter if we have about 1.5 grams of material or less. And then I've got this apparatus here. Now there's a vacuum pump over here that I'm going to turn on in just a moment. And I have a valve here. Now I've actually got a vacuum trap, which is, so the vacuum goes to this flask, and then it comes out that flask and will go over to my sample. And that's just in case you pull up some solvent. These vacuum pumps use oil to make them work, and the problem is if you get an organic solvent in there, it can ruin the oil, and then it doesn't work very well. Okay, so we don't want to do that. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to turn on our pump. Okay, and then you can hear it pulling the air through there. It's going to be a little bit loud. But we're going to swirl this. We're going to transfer as much as possible. We have solvent right through there. And then we're going to use 2 more aliquots of our methylene chloride, about 3 milliliters each. Hopefully that's enough to get our material transferred. Okay. Oh, it is being really sticky today. So what we're going to do a transfer while we're on here. Okay. We got more. This is not a particularly soluble one, so I can get away with a little extra if I need. Break it up in several smaller pieces. Get this transferred. There we go. So we've now got our material out. Do one more aliquot just to make sure. Okay. Here. Okay. Now we want our material nice and dry. So we're actually going to pull a vacuum on this for 2 minutes. So let's let this go. Set my timer for 2 minutes. Okay. Now I'm going to, hopefully this isn't too dizzying, pick you up a little bit so you can see in there. And a nice white solid there. Okay. Set this back down. So we've been drying for 2 minutes now. And so we're going to go ahead and close this valve and turn off our vacuum pump. And you can see that we have a nice white powder here. And what I want to do now is I'm going to transfer this to a pre-weighed vial so that I can calculate my % yield. And then if you remember, our ultimate goal in this experiment was to figure out which nitrogen was our reactive nitrogen. And so we're going to need to do some analysis, and we're going to do IR and NMR. So now when I'm being very careful when I scrape this, because if you remember, we put in a boiling stone. We didn't make the boiling stone, so we don't want that to be part of our product mass. So I'm going to use a pair of tweezers there to pull out my boiling stone. I'm going to scrape in as much of this as possible. All right, so I'm going to weigh this to gather that data, and then I will meet you at the IR.